Eddie's exploit. Edward is one of the oldest engines on Sodor. He doesn't chuff as fast as Gordon, and he isn't as strong as Henry, but Edward is always steady and always does his best to be as really useful as he can. One day at Knapford Station, Bertie the bus brought passengers for Edward to take to Misty Island. He was feeling a little exhausted.
Hello, Edward.
Hello, Bertie.
Goodness me, all these passengers. I've never carried so many so fast before.
Edward smiled. Don't worry, Bertie. I'll take these passengers from here, and you can have a nice long rest. That made Bertie feel better. Soon, all the passengers had boarded Edward's passenger coaches. Edward blew his whistle and tried to set off, but he couldn't. He pumped his pistons as hard as he could, but his wheels wouldn't whir. Just then, Gordon and Thomas arrived to pick up Joby logs.
Cinders and ashes, Edward. You look positively pained. Are you all right?
Edward couldn't answer. He just kept slipping and sticking to the tracks. Gordon sniffed snootily.
Edward's getting too old and too slow to pull passengers. A shame, really. Perhaps he can take those Joby logs, Thomas, and leave the bigger trains for the bigger engines.
Thomas was cross. He didn't think Gordon was being fair at all.
Nonsense, Gordon. Edward's never been too old before, and he's not too old now. He'll whoosh like the wind once he gets going. You'll see.
Just then, Edward's wheels started to turn. I've done it! We're off! I've done it! We're off! And Edward steamed proudly away. But as Edward puffed along the line, Gordon's words flew around his funnel. I can't be too old or too slow. I'm running now like I've never ran. I'll whoosh like the wind to take these people there and show them all I can. So Edward chuffed on. Soon, Edward arrived on Misty Island. The passengers wanted to take pictures and see the sights, but Edward was still worried. Don't be too long now, everyone. We'll have to be back soon. Just then, Bash, Dash, and Ferdinand rolled in front of Edward.
Hello, Edward.
Hello, Edward. Edward smiled softly. Hello, logging locos. My, we haven't had this many people here in a very long time.
That's right.
If you want, we could give them a tour of the island ourselves.
It won't take long.
But Edward wasn't so sure. If the logging locos took their time showing Misty Island to the passengers, then Edward wouldn't get back home on time after all. No thank you, logging locos. I'll give them the tour. You can stay with Old Wheezy and Hee Haw, biffing and bashing logs until I get back. The logging locos liked biffing and bashing logs with Old Wheezy, but they were a little upset. If you say so. Edward clickety-clacked around Misty Island as fast as he could. He went past Echo Valley. He went through the Hollow Tree Tunnel. He took passengers by the sea. And he even went over the Shake Shake Bridge in record time. But the passengers were confused. Now that Edward was going so fast, they couldn't see the sights or take pictures anymore. Edward whooshed back to the logging station. The logging locos were surprised. That was fast. We didn't think you'd be back so soon.
Is that right?
But Edward just smiled. He had been fast and fearless. I can't be too old or too slow. I'm running now like I've never ran. I'll whoosh like the wind to get these people home and show them all I can. And Edward steamed happily away. As Edward puffed along, however, something was wrong. He could hear clanking and rattling from his rods. Edward gasped. Oh no! I'm rattling, just like an old and slow engine. Edward stopped at a signal. James was waiting there too.
Oh my, Edward, what is that noise? I could hear you from the signal.
But Edward didn't want to tell James. If something was wrong with him, he'd have to go to the steamworks. His passengers wouldn't get home on time, and Gordon would be right. Nothing, James. I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
All the same, you should be careful, Edward. Driver tells me there'll be heavy rain and heavy fog soon.
Edward was more worried than ever, but now he was also more determined than ever to get the passengers home and prove Gordon wrong. Thank you, James. I'll make sure my lamp is beaming brightly when the fog rolls around. The signal turned green, and Edward rattled away once more. Then there was trouble. The fog did roll in, and the rain did pour heavily. Edward's lamp was now beaming bright, but the rain buffeted and blasted Edward from footplate to fenders. Blistering boilers! This is hard work! Edward's wheels spun faster and faster. He wanted to get home on time. He didn't want Gordon to be right about being too old and too slow. Then there was even more trouble. Edward's rods rattled louder and louder. Then they shot up like a rocket, straight into Edward's footplate. Oh! Edward was frightened and badly damaged. There was nothing left to do but stop the train. Edward's driver and fireman looked at the damage, while his passengers waited anxiously in the coaches.
It's no good, Edward. Your footplate is bent out of shape and your rods have snapped.
Edward felt terrible. If only I hadn't rushed around all day. If only I'd gone slower. Edward's driver and fireman tried everything. They tried taking off Edward's rods. They tried laying sand on the rails to give Edward grip. No matter what they did, Edward would not start. Edward sighed. I suppose now we'll never get home. Just then Charlie arrived. He was surprised. Bust my buffers, Edward! You're in a mess! Edward didn't answer. He was too ashamed. Would you like to hear a joke? Edward groaned. You may as well. Alright then, what do you call it when a single biff or a bash causes a long line of cars to be coupled together at once? Edward thought. I don't know. A chain reaction! And Charlie raced off. Edward was cross. He didn't think that was funny at all. But then an idea flew into Edward's funnel. Of course! A chain! Driver, fireman, loosen the coupling chains on my coaches. With less strain and more spin, maybe I can pull the train. His crew thought this was a very good idea, and they did as Edward told them. When at last everything was ready, Edward blew his whistle boomingly. Come on, I can do it! Come on, I can do it! Then, one by one, Edward's coaches started to move with him. The passengers cheered and clapped from inside the coaches.
Well done, Edward!
You've done it! Cheers for studying!
Edward was amazed. I've done it! I've done it! I knew that I would! I'll get these passengers safely home and show them all I could! At Knapford Station, the engines were worried.
Edward should have been back ages ago, sir. Telephone the Sodor Search and Rescue Center. Something must be wrong.
But the fog is so thick, even they might get lost.
Then they all heard a whistle they knew well.
Edward?
And there he was, battered, broken, but unbeaten. Edward pulled into the station, bringing a chorus of claps and cheers with him.
3 cheers for Edward! Hip hip! Hooray! Edward!
Well done, Edward. But, sir, aren't I very late? Sir Topham Hatt just smiled. If you were any other engine, you wouldn't have gotten the passengers here at all. You got them here with a broken footplate and bent rods. You, Edward, are a credit to my railway. Edward beamed from buffer to buffer. Even Gordon was impressed. Soon, Edward was fixed at the steamworks. Gordon now knows not to be rude to Edward again. He knows that Edward isn't too old or too slow to be a really useful engine.